Hey guys, tonight we begin with something that sounds like glory wrapped in leather and gunpowder, the life of a Wild West bounty hunter. You've seen the movies, the lone rider tracking outlaws across dusty plains, collecting rewards, living by no man's rules but your own. Sounds romantic, right? Wrong. The reality was sleeping in your own sweat, chasing men who just as soon shoot you as look at you, and realizing that most bounties paid less than what it cost to track them down, assuming you survived long enough to collect at all. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Congratulations. You're a bounty hunter in 1875. You own a horse that's seen better days, a revolver you're not entirely sure works, a bedroll that smells like death and saddle leather, and approximately $12 to your name. Your job? Hunt down wanted criminals for money? Your life expectancy? Significantly shorter than a school teacher's, and they don't live long either. You wake up this morning in a town you can't remember the name of, somewhere in Arizona territory. Maybe. Could be New Mexico. Could be Texas. Honestly, after 3 weeks on the trail, every dusty hellhole starts looking the same. Your bed last night was a patch of ground behind the livery stable because the boarding house wanted 50 cents and you're saving that for bullets. The ground was hard. The temperature dropped to freezing after midnight. Something, probably a rat, hopefully a rat, crawled over your legs around 3 a.m. You didn't sleep so much as pass out from exhaustion and woke up with your back screaming, your mouth tasting like you licked a saddle, and your neck stiff enough to make turning your head a full-body activity. Welcome to day one of your thrilling career as a bounty hunter. The sun's barely up, and you're already wondering if this was a terrible mistake. Your spine cracks like old floorboards when you finally sit up. Your joints protest every movement. You're 32 years old, but you feel 60. You haven't bathed in 2 weeks. Not because you're lazy, but because water costs money, and most towns you pass through don't have public baths. When you do find water, it's usually a muddy creek shared with horses, cattle, and whatever died upstream last Tuesday. So you reek, a unique blend of horse sweat, gun oil, tobacco, campfire smoke, and the kind of body odour that could strip paint off a barn door. It's the kind of smell that announces your presence before you enter a room. Women cross the street when they see you coming. Your clothes? The same shirt you've worn for a month, same trousers, same vest, same hat that's so stained with sweat and dust it's changed colour twice. Your boots smell like something died inside them and decided to stay. The leather is cracked, the soles are wearing thin, and there's a hole near your left toe that lets in dust, water, and occasionally small insects. The town around you isn't much better. A wall of horse manure, unwashed humanity, rotting garbage, and the sharp tang of gunpowder lingering in the air from last night's saloon disagreement. Somewhere nearby, a dog that hasn't been fed in days is eating something it found in an alley. You don't look too closely. The streets are churned mud mixed with horse piss, tobacco spit, and the crushed dreams of every prospector who came west thinking they'd strike it rich. Wooden buildings lean at concerning angles. False fronts pretend these structures are more impressive than they are. This is your world now. Dust, decay, and the faint hope that the next bounty will pay enough to afford a hot meal, and maybe, just maybe, a bath. You splash some water from a horse trough on your face. It's brown and smells questionable, but it's all you've got. A piece of broken mirror hanging outside the livery shows you what you've become. Sunburned skin, cracked lips, bloodshot eyes, and a beard that's more dirt than hair. You look like an outlaw yourself. You don't have a desk, a badge, or legal authority. What you have is a crumpled wanted poster you picked up at the last town's sheriff's office. It shows a grainy sketch of a man named Jesse Three Finger Callahan, wanted for cattle rustling, horse theft, and general disreputable behaviour. Reward, $200. Dead or alive. $200. That's more than you've seen in 6 months. That could buy you a new horse, a winter coat, food for weeks, maybe even a night in a real bed with sheets that don't have visible stains. But here's the thing. You're not the only one hunting Three-Finger Callahan. Every bounty hunter, drifter, and desperate fool within 100 miles saw that same poster. You're in a race against men just as hungry, armed, and morally flexible as you are. Some of them are better shots, some have better horses, some have informants you don't. And the poster, it's vague. Last seen near Tucson. That's it. No address, no known associates, no helpful hints. Just a bad sketch that could describe half the men in the territory and a location that covers roughly 500 square miles of desert, mountains, and places where people go to disappear. The drawing looks like it was done by someone who'd maybe seen Callahan once, at night, while drunk. Your job is to find this man before someone else does, bring him in without getting killed, and collect a reward that might not even exist anymore if he's already been caught. Easy, right? You fold the poster carefully and tuck it inside your vest, next to the 2 other wanted posters you're carrying. Those other 2 are for men you've been chasing for 3 months, with no luck. One's probably in California by now. The other might be dead, but you keep their posters because throwing them away feels like admitting defeat. Let's talk about your horse. His name is... well, you never named him because naming things you might have to eat seems unwise. He's 15 years old, which in horse years is 1 bad day away from collapsing. He's thin, temperamental, and has a habit of trying to bite you when you saddle him. But he's yours, and in the Wild West, a man without a horse is a man walking to his own funeral. You bought him for $30 from a drunk prospector in Abilene who swore he was reliable. He lied. This horse has thrown you twice, stepped on your foot once, and regularly refuses to move when you're in a hurry. But he's also carried you across deserts, through storms, and away from trouble more than once. You hate him. You also can't survive without him. There's a strange bond there, built not on affection, but on mutual dependence and shared misery. Every morning you check his legs for injuries, his hooves for stones, his coat for saddle sores. Not because you're sentimental, but because if this horse goes lame, you're stranded. And a stranded bounty hunter in hostile territory is just a future skeleton with a gun belt. You run your hands down each leg, feeling for heat that would indicate swelling. You pick out his hooves with a stick, checking for cracks or embedded rocks. This ritual takes 20 minutes every morning. Time you can't afford, but can't skip. You feed him before you feed yourself. You water him before you drink. Not out of love, but survival. Because in this line of work, your horse is your transportation, your escape route, and occasionally your only companion for weeks at a time. If he dies, you're next. You've seen it happen. Met a bounty hunter once whose horse broke its leg in a prairie dog hole. Man tried to walk 40 miles to the nearest town. They found him 3 days later, dead from exposure, 10 miles short of salvation. Tracking a wanted man isn't like the movies. You don't have a magical sense of where he went or a trail of convenient clues. What you have is rumour, luck, and an alarming amount of guesswork. You start by asking around town. The bartender hasn't seen him. The blacksmith thinks maybe he saw someone matching that description 3 weeks ago, heading south. Or was it north? He squints at the poster, then at you, then shrugs. Might have been him. Might have been someone else. Hard to say. You buying a drink? You're not. You can't afford to buy information with whiskey, which means people aren't particularly motivated to remember details. The local prostitute claims he was here yesterday, but she'll need $2 to remember more clearly. Her eyes are calculating, measuring whether you're desperate enough to pay. You don't have $2. You move on. You try the general store. The owner remembers someone with missing fingers buying tobacco 2 weeks ago, but he can't recall which direction the man was heading. You try the livery. The stable hand is 12 years old and more interested in picking his nose than helping you. After 3 hours of dead ends, you've learned nothing except that nobody in this town gives a damn about your problems, and everybody wants money before they'll pretend to care. You ride to the next town, following a hunch based on a drunken prospector's half-remembered story about a man with 3 fingers, buying whiskey near the border. Could be your man, could also be someone else missing fingers. Mining accidents, farm equipment, frostbite, gangrene. There are 100 ways to lose fingers out here. Could be completely made up. Drunks tell stories for entertainment, not accuracy. You won't know until you get there, which will take 4 days of riding through desert heat that turns your brain into soup. 4 days. That's 4 days of supplies you need to buy with money you don't have. 4 days your competition could be using to get ahead of you. 4 days the trail gets colder. 4 days Callahan could be fleeing to Mexico, where your wanted poster means absolutely nothing. And here's the fun part. While you're tracking him, he might be tracking you. Smart outlaws learn the faces of bounty hunters. They know who's hunting them, and some of them decide the best defense is to eliminate the hunter before the hunter eliminates them. So every time you stop in a town asking questions, you're also advertising your presence and your intentions. Every person you talk to could be sending word ahead to Callahan, or someone else is tracking you. Other bounty hunters who figure you're onto something and want to follow you to the target then swoop in and steal your prize at the last second. It's happened before. You once tracked a horse thief for 6 weeks, finally cornered him in a canyon, and had another bounty hunter step out of nowhere and shoot the man dead before you could. He claimed the reward. You got nothing, but you keep going, because quitting means admitting you wasted time, money, and effort, and because the alternative is crawling back to whatever life you were running from when you became a bounty hunter in the first place. For you, that was a failed farm in Missouri, debts you couldn't pay, and a wife who left you for a man with better prospects. She was right to leave. Becoming a bounty hunter was supposed to change that. 3 years later, you're broker than ever and sleeping behind stables. Here's something the movies don't tell you. Nobody respects bounty hunters. Sheriffs tolerate you because you sometimes do their job for them, but they don't trust you. They see you as competition, as someone cutting into their authority. Some sheriffs actively work against bounty hunters, warning wanted men that hunters are in town, or losing paperwork that would prove your claim to a reward. Townsfolk see you as a vulture, profiting off violence and misery. You walk down the street and women pull their children closer. Men watch you with suspicious eyes. You're not welcome here, and everyone makes sure you know it. Shop owners charge you higher prices. Boarding houses claim they're full. Saloons serve you last and watch you carefully. Outlaws see you as a traitor to your own kind, because let's be honest, most bounty hunters are one bad decision away from being on a wanted poster themselves. The line between hunter and hunted is razor thin. You're all violent men operating outside normal society. The only difference is you have a piece of paper claiming legality. You walk into a saloon and the room goes quiet. Not because you're intimidating, but because everyone's trying to figure out if you're hunting them. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Card games pause. Some men slip out the back door. Others move their hands closer to their guns. You ask questions and people lie. Never seen him. Don't know nothing about that. You show your wanted poster and suddenly no one's seen anything, even though 3 people definitely recognize the face. Because in the Wild West, helping a bounty hunter makes you a snitch, and snitches don't live long. Even when you do catch someone, local law enforcement might not honor the bounty. Oh, that poster's outdated. The reward's been claimed already. We don't have the funds right now. Come back next month. And good luck collecting if you cross state or territorial lines. Jurisdictions are a nightmare. Paperwork is a fantasy. And half the sheriffs you deal with are either corrupt or incompetent. You're not a hero. You're not even really law enforcement. You're a freelance thug with a piece of paper, trying to drag dangerous men back to civilization for money that might not be there when you arrive. Let's be very clear. Bounty hunting is one of the most dangerous jobs in the Wild West, and the Wild West is already trying to kill you daily. You're hunting men who are armed, desperate, and have absolutely nothing to lose. They know you're coming. They know what you want, and they know the easiest way to stop you is to shoot you in the back and leave your body for the coyotes. You ride alone most of the time because partners means splitting the reward, and you can't afford that. But riding alone also means no backup when things go wrong, no one to watch your back, no one to help if you're ambushed, injured, or trapped. The desert is full of bones belonging to men who rode alone and met someone faster, smarter, or luckier, and ambushes happen constantly. You're following a trail into a canyon, and suddenly bullets start flying from the rocks above. You're sleeping by a campfire and wake up to a gun in your face. You knock on a cabin door to serve a warrant, and the door explodes in buckshot that tears through your shoulder and leaves you bleeding in the dirt. This isn't a job where you retire peacefully. Most bounty hunters die violently, suddenly, and alone. Even if you survive the outlaws, there's still disease, accidents, snake bites, bad water, infected wounds, and the dozens of other ways the frontier kills people daily. You could survive a shootout with a wanted murderer only to die 3 days later from dysentery because you drank from the wrong creek. You could dodge bullets for a decade and then die because your horse threw you and you hit your head on a rock. You've seen death in every form. You've seen men shot, stabbed, beaten, hanged. You've seen them die from disease, starvation, exposure. You've watched infection turn a small cut into a death sentence. Death is your constant companion, and you know, absolutely know, that someday soon it will be your turn. Every day you wake up is a small miracle. Every night you survive is borrowed time. And the worst part, you've gotten used to it. The fear that used to keep you awake at night has dulled into a background hum of anxiety you barely notice anymore. You've stopped making plans beyond next week. You've accepted that you're going to die violently and probably soon. Let's talk about your actual day-to-day life as a bounty hunter, because it's the opposite of glamorous. You eat beans, lots of beans, sometimes with salt pork if you're lucky, sometimes with nothing if you're not. You drink coffee that tastes like burnt sadness and cook over open fires that attract every bug and predator within 5 miles. The beans are never quite cooked enough. They're hard in the middle, burned on the outside, and taste like the metal pot you cooked them in. The salt pork is worse. It's grey, tough, and salty enough to choke a mule. You fry it in its own grease because you don't have butter or oil. Sometimes you find a greenish tinge on it and have to cut away the bad parts, though bad is relative when the whole piece is questionable. You sleep on the ground under the stars, which sounds romantic until you've done it for 6 months, straight through rain, cold, heat, and attacks by ants, scorpions, and one memorable rattlesnake. In summer, the ground radiates heat like a stove. Rocks press into your back. Insects crawl across your face. In winter, the cold seeps through every layer until your bones ache, and you wake up shivering so hard your teeth crack. You don't have a home. You don't have stability. You own what fits in your saddlebags, and nothing more. 2 shirts, 1 pair of pants, spare socks with holes in them, a blanket that's more patches than original fabric, a dented coffee pot, ammunition, and the basic tools needed to maintain your gun and horse. That's your entire life, compressed into 40 pounds of gear. Your expenses are brutal. Bullets cost money, 15 cents each for your caliber. Horse feed costs money, 25 cents for enough oats to keep your horse going another day. Replacing worn-out gear costs money. New boots are $3. A new hat is $1.50. Everything breaks, wears out, or falls apart eventually. And every dollar you spend is a dollar that's not going toward food or shelter, which means you're constantly operating at a loss, hoping the next bounty will finally put you ahead. 3 months ago, you spent $47 chasing a bounty that paid $35. Last month, You spent $62 and earned $50. The math is brutal and unforgiving. And it never gets better, because by the time you factor in travel costs, ammunition, lost time, bribes to informants, and the reward being smaller than advertised, most bounties net you less than you'd make working in a store or on a ranch. But you keep doing it, because maybe the next one will be different. Spoiler alert, it won't. Here's something no one talks about. Bounty hunting is profoundly, crushingly lonely. You spend weeks, sometimes months, riding alone through empty wilderness. No conversation except with your horse who doesn't answer. No human contact except brief, tense encounters. In towns where people see you as a threat, the silence of the desert is absolute. There's no birdsong, no rustling leaves, no distant voices. Just wind, hoofbeats, and your own breathing. You have no friends because friendship requires trust, and trust gets you killed in this line of work. The last man you called a friend tried to steal a bounty from you. You have no family because you left them behind, or they left you. You have no community because you're never in one place long enough to build connections. The silence gets to you. The isolation gnaws at your mind. You start talking to yourself, narrating your actions like there's someone listening. You start having conversations with people who aren't there. You replay old memories over and over because they're all you have, polishing them like stones until you can't remember what's real and what you've invented. Some bounty hunters turn to alcohol, drinking themselves into oblivion every time they reach civilization. Some turn mean, becoming more brutal, more violent. Some just vanish into the wilderness and never come back. Because the psychological toll of this life, the violence, the uncertainty, the loneliness, is something most men can't handle for long. You tell yourself you're strong. You tell yourself you can take it. But on your third straight week of riding through empty desert with no one to talk to and nothing but dust and your own thoughts for company, you start to understand why so many bounty hunters either quit or die. After weeks of searching, following dead ends, spending money you don't have, and nearly getting killed twice, you finally find him. Jesse Three Finger. Callahan is drinking in a saloon in some forgotten town. You walk in, he sees you, and for one perfect moment, everything you've suffered through feels worth it. Your heart pounds, your hand drifts toward your gun. Then he pulls a gun. What follows is chaos. The saloon erupts, customers dive for cover. The bartender drops behind his bar. Bottles explode, wood splinters, someone screams. You draw fast and pull the trigger. The shot is deafening. Callahan returns fire. A bullet whines past your ear, close enough to feel the heat. You fire again. The gun smoke is so thick you can barely see. If you're lucky and skilled, you win. Callahan drops his gun, clutching a wound in his shoulder. You tie him up, throw him on his horse, and start the long ride back to civilization. Callahan is cursing you the entire time, promising to kill you. Blood soaks his shirt. But here's the thing about bringing in a wanted man alive. He doesn't want to be brought in. He'll try to escape every single moment. While you're sleeping, while you're eating, while you're taking a piss. He'll work at his ropes constantly. You have to stay alert every second, because one moment of carelessness means he's free and you're dead. And he'll talk. Begging, threatening, bargaining, lying. I've got money hidden. I'll split it with you. The people I work for will hunt you down. I've got a wife and kids, please. Some of it might even be true. You'll never know. So you gag him after the first day. You check his bonds every hour. You sleep in 2-hour shifts. You become his jailer, his tormentor, and you tell yourself it's just business. And if you bring him in dead, dead men don't escape. But you'll spend the entire ride back worried that the body will decompose before you can prove who it is. And in the summer heat, a dead body starts to smell after a few hours. After 3 days, it's liquid decomposition that attracts every fly and scavenger for miles. Either way, you arrive in town exhausted, paranoid, and desperately hoping the reward is real. You walk into the sheriff's office, drop your prisoner at his feet, and present your wanted poster. The sheriff squints at the man, squints at the poster, squints at you. That him? He's stalling. You know he's stalling. He calls for a witness. They take their sweet time. Finally, someone confirms it's Callahan. Relief floods through you. You're about to get paid. Reward was $200, right? You ask. Was, the sheriff says, but the town council reduced it to $150 last week. Budget cuts. Your heart sinks. But $150 is still $150. Of course, there's administrative fees, processing, paperwork, temporary holding. Comes to about $30. You're down to $120. And since you brought him in dead, there's a disposal fee, $100. Oh, and there's a bounty tax now. By the time everything's deducted, you walk away with $75. After a month of work, constant danger, and spending roughly $60 on travel, food and ammunition, your profit is $15. $15 for a month of your life, for killing a man, for risking death a dozen times. You stand in the street, holding your meagre payment, and wonder if there's any other job in the world that respects human life this little. Here's the part that keeps you up at night. You're hunting people for money. Living, breathing human beings. Sure, they're criminals, or at least accused of being criminals, but you don't know their stories. The wanted poster doesn't tell you that Jesse Callahan was stealing cattle to feed his starving kids. It doesn't mention that the man you shot might have been innocent, falsely accused by a corrupt sheriff. You don't know. You don't ask, because asking means doubt, and doubt means hesitation, and hesitation gets you killed. So you don't think about it. You tell yourself they're criminals and they deserve what they get. You tell yourself you're serving justice, but late at night, when you're alone with your thoughts and the faces of dead men, you wonder if you're any different from the outlaws you hunt. You wonder if the line between law and lawlessness is as clear as you'd like to believe. You wonder if you're a good man doing bad things or a bad man pretending to do good. And then the sun rises and you push those thoughts down and you ride toward the next bounty, because what else are you going to do? Not every hunt ends in success. Some targets are too smart, too fast, or too lucky. You track them for weeks only to lose the trail. And every failed hunt costs you money, time, reputation. Other bounty hunters hear you lost your target, and suddenly you're a joke. Sheriffs stop offering you tips. Informants stop talking to you. Each failure chips away at your confidence, your finances, and your will to continue. You start taking bigger risks, chasing more dangerous targets, because you need a win. But desperation makes you sloppy, and sloppy bounty hunters don't live long. Some men never recover from a big failure. They drift from town to town, taking odd jobs, drinking their shame away, telling anyone who'll listen about the one that got away. They die broke, bitter and forgotten. You're determined not to become one of them. But with each failed hunt, that determination gets a little harder to maintain. In the beginning, shooting a man was a big deal. Your hands shook, your heart raced. You couldn't sleep for days afterward. You threw up after your first kill. You wept after your second. But after your 5th shootout, your 10th capture, your 20th close call with death, something changes. The violence becomes routine. Pulling your gun becomes as natural as breathing. Killing becomes a job requirement, not a moral crisis. You stop seeing the men you hunt as people and start seeing them as targets, obstacles, paychecks. This is what the job does to you. It strips away your humanity piece by piece until you're just a weapon with a pulse. You become cold, calculating, dangerous. And the worst part? It makes the job easier. But you pay for that ease. You pay in nightmares that wake you up gasping. You pay in paranoia that makes you check every shadow. You pay in the way you can't relax even in safe spaces. You pay in relationships you can't form because you don't know how to trust anymore. You pay in the mirror every morning when you see a stranger staring back. Hard eyes, flat expression, the face of a killer. The violence didn't break you. It remade you into something harder, sharper, and infinitely lonelier. And you can't decide if that's survival or surrender. Here's a fun fact about being a bounty hunter. There's no retirement. You don't work for 30 years and get a pension. You work until you can't anymore. Until you're too old, too slow, too injured, or too dead. Most bounty hunters don't make it to old age. They die in shootouts, ambushes, or accidents. Those who survive long enough to become too old to ride end up destitute, begging in streets, working degrading jobs for pennies, or dying alone in charity hospitals. There's no safety net. If you get injured badly enough that you can't work, you're finished. If you lose your horse, your gun, or your nerve, you're finished. This job has no future, only a brutal present and an almost certain tragic end. You know this. Every bounty hunter knows this. You've seen the old-timers. They're not living in comfortable houses. They're sleeping in alleys, drinking themselves to death. Broken men whose only stories are about the past. You know this will be you eventually, if you live long enough. And yet you keep riding, keep hunting, keep gambling with your life. Because what choice do you have? You can't go back. You can't start over. This is what you are now. You're becoming obsolete even as you're destroying yourself. So you ride toward the next town, the next bounty, the next chance to prove you're still worth something. And you try not to think about what happens when the bullets finally catch up to you. You've woken up in the dirt, smelled like a corpse, chased a man across half of Arizona, nearly died 3 times, spent money you didn't have, dealt with corrupt sheriffs and lying witnesses, collected a fraction of the promised reward. And now you're sitting in a dingy saloon, drinking cheap whiskey and wondering where it all went wrong. Still dreaming of being a bounty hunter, of living by your own rules, riding into sunsets, collecting rewards. The myth is powerful. We've built an entire genre around it. The lone wolf, the man of action, the frontier justice bringer. But the reality was far less romantic. It was brutal, lonely, and morally exhausting. Most bounty hunters didn't get rich or famous. Most didn't even survive more than a few years. And those who did often wish they hadn't, because the life took everything from them. Their humanity, their peace, their future. Being a bounty hunter wasn't about freedom. It was about survival in its most desperate form. You were a man chasing other men across a wasteland, gambling your life for money that barely covered expenses, trying to convince yourself that what you were doing mattered. But here's the thing. Despite all that suffering, some men kept doing it. They kept riding out, kept hunting, kept risking everything, because it was the only life they knew, or the only life they could live. They were broken men in a broken system, trying to carve out meaning in a world that had none to give. They couldn't return to normal life. The violence had marked them, changed them, made them fit for nothing else. So tonight, when you lie down in your comfortable bed with locks on your door and law enforcement a phone call away, maybe take a moment to appreciate it. Because your ancestors, literal or spiritual, survived the Wild West, the bounty trails, the violence, and the dust. They endured it all so you wouldn't have to live in a world where hunting people for money was considered a reasonable career choice. And somewhere in the dust of the frontier, their stories remain, weathered but unbroken.